He wore a suit that cost more than her car, $10,000, hand-stitched in Milan, the kind of charcoal wool that catches light like still water. And he was standing behind a woman counting dimes, nickels, pennies, coins she'd pulled from a coffee can, from the bottom of a diaper bag, from the crack of a couch that wasn't even hers anymore. They were in a Dollar Tree, fluorescent lights, sticky floor, a checkout line 6 people deep on a Tuesday night, and everybody in it was pretending not to watch her. But he watched. His name was Everett Cole, and if you follow money at all, you know that name. Shipping, logistics, real estate on 4 continents. The kind of man whose net worth has too many zeros to fit on a screen. He didn't shop at Dollar Tree. He didn't shop anywhere, really. People shopped for him. So why was he there? Hold that thought, because the answer isn't what you think. And what happened at that register, what he saw her slide into her purse when she thought no one was looking, it didn't make him angry. It made him go completely still. Here's the crazy part. This man had negotiated hostile takeovers without blinking. He'd fired executives over breakfast and forgotten their names by lunch. Cold. That's what the magazines called him. The Ice Baron. And a woman with a plastic basket and a toddler on her hip just froze him solid. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let me take you back a few hours. Because to understand why a trillionaire followed a widowed mother into a dollar store, you have to understand what he lost, and what he never, ever got back. Everett Cole grew up hungry. Not the kind of hungry where dinner's a little late. The kind where you learn the exact sound the refrigerator makes when it's empty. A different hum. Hollow. His mother's name was Ruth. She worked 2 jobs, then 3. She cleaned offices at night and pressed shirts in a dry cleaner by day, and on Sundays, she took in mending for the neighbors, needle and thread under a lamp until her eyes gave out. His father was gone. Not dead, just gone. The way some men leave, quietly, selfishly, with a note that said less than it should have. So it was Ruth and Everett, just the 2 of them, in an apartment where the heat clicked off at 10 and you slept in your coat and called it an adventure so the little one wouldn't cry. And Everett remembered the coins. God, he remembered the coins. Ruth kept them in an old cocoa tin, silver on top, copper underneath. And at the end of every month, the hard end, the last 3 or 4 days before payday, she'd sit at the kitchen table and count them out. Slow, careful, lips moving. He'd watch her from the doorway, 5 years old, 6, 7. And he'd watch her do the math that no child should ever see a parent do. This much for bread, this much for milk, this much left over. And some nights there was no leftover. Some nights the milk won and the bread lost, or the bread won and something else got quietly put back. She never complained. That's the thing that haunted him most later when he had everything. She never once complained. She'd just smile and say, "We're doing fine, baby. We're doing just fine." They weren't doing fine, but she said it anyway, because that's what she thought a mother was supposed to do. Carry the weight and smile so the child never feels how heavy it is. Think about that. Think about carrying something so heavy your hands shake, and still smiling so the person you love never learns the words for what you're going through. That was Ruth. Now here's where it gets worse. Everett clawed his way out. Scholarships, night classes, a job, then 2. Then a small idea about moving freight cheaper than anyone else in the city. And that small idea grew, and grew. And by the time he was 40, Everett Cole didn't count coins anymore. He counted companies. He built an empire on the memory of that cocoa tin. Every warehouse he opened, every route he optimized, some part of him was still that boy in the doorway, promising himself, never again, not me, not her, never again. He was going to buy his mother the world, a house with real heat, a car that started every time, a refrigerator that hummed the full hum. He had it all planned out, the exact day, the exact surprise. He was 3 months away from that day when Ruth died, 61 years old. Her heart just stopped. Sitting at that same kitchen table in that same apartment, because she'd refused every single time he tried to move her somewhere better. "This is home," she'd say. "You save your money, baby. Save your money." She died still telling him to save his money. And Everett Cole, the man who could buy anything, walked into that apartment after the funeral and found the cocoa tin, still on the shelf, still half full of coins. And he sat down at the table where she used to count, and for the first time since he was a boy, the Ice Baron cried. So now you know. Now you know why a man in a $10,000 suit doesn't flinch at a boardroom, but comes undone at the sight of coins on a counter. Because for 20 years after his mother died, Everett Cole had one recurring nightmare. Same one. Every time. He's standing behind Ruth in a grocery line. She's counting coins. She's short. And he, grown, rich, powerful, reaches into his pocket to help her. And he has nothing. His pockets are empty. In the dream, always empty. He can't help her. He can only watch. He'd wake up soaked in sweat, heart slamming, reaching for a phone to call a woman who'd been gone for 2 decades. That was the wound. That was the thing all his billions couldn't touch. The one thing money is powerless against, the past. The chance you didn't get. The 3 months you missed by. And on this particular Tuesday night, driving himself for once, no security, no driver, just wanting to be alone with his ghosts, Everett pulled into a strip mall parking lot to take a phone call. And through the glass storefront of a Dollar Tree, under those buzzing lights, he saw a woman with a toddler on her hip, and she was pulling coins out of a coffee can. He didn't decide to go in, not really. His feet decided. His body was moving before his mind caught up, the phone still buzzing in his hand, some board member's voice fading into nothing. Because it was happening again. Not in a dream this time, right there, in front of him. A mother. Coins. That look on her face, the one Ruth used to make. The small, brave smile stretched too tight over something breaking underneath. And Everett Cole thought, this time my pockets aren't empty. This time I can help. But he was wrong about how this was going to go. Because he was about to learn that this woman, Maya was her name, though he didn't know it yet, this woman wasn't going to make it simple. What she was hiding in that purse would turn everything he thought he understood about helping, about poverty, about that brave-faced smile, completely upside down. And it starts with one small thing she did at the register. One tiny movement. The kind you'd miss if you blinked. Everett didn't blink. The bell over the door didn't ring. It never does in those places. Just a soft electronic chirp that nobody hears. Everett stepped inside, and the smell hit him first. That particular Dollar Tree smell, cheap plastic and floor cleaner, and something faintly sweet, like off-brand candy melting under the lights. He hadn't smelled that in 40 years. It knocked the air out of him. For a second, he just stood there by the entrance, this towering man in charcoal wool, blinking at rows of green shelving, party balloons, kitchen sponges, plastic storage bins in colors that don't exist in nature. And up ahead, at Register 2, the woman with the toddler. He moved closer, slow, casual. He picked up a basket he didn't need and pretended to browse a shelf of greeting cards, because that's what you do when you're a stranger who doesn't want to look like you're staring. But he was staring. Her name was Maya Brooks. He'd learn that later. Right now, she was just a woman doing math. She had a boy on her hip, maybe 2 years old, cheeks round, one shoe on, one shoe missing, gnawing on his own fist. And beside her, holding the edge of the counter, a little girl, older, 6, maybe 7. That little girl was doing the thing. Everett saw it and his chest caved in. The girl was watching her mother's hands, watching the coins, not saying anything, just watching. The way a child watches when they've learned way too early that this moment matters, that this is the part where you stay very quiet and very still and you don't ask for anything. He knew that stillness. He was that stillness. 35 years ago, in a doorway. On the counter, Maya had laid out her things. And here's what Everett noticed, because he couldn't stop himself from noticing. A loaf of bread. The cheap kind, the white kind, 99 cents. A jar of peanut butter, store brand. A gallon of milk she'd carried over from the cooler in the back. A box of pasta, a can of sauce. A 4-pack of applesauce cups, the kind with the foil lids that kids can peel themselves. And a single banana. 1 banana. For 2 kids. He stared at that banana, and something in him started to ache. That was it. That was the whole order. Dinner, maybe breakfast, for a family of 3. Laid out on a rubber conveyor belt that wasn't even moving. The cashier, a tired teenager with a name tag that said Destiny, started scanning. Beep. That's $1.25. Beep. $2.50. Beep. And here's where it gets unbearable, because Maya was counting along. You could see her lips moving, just barely, adding it up in her head, faster than the register, always one step ahead. She already knew. She'd known before she walked in. She had the number. She'd carried it in like a stone in her shoe. Beep. $4.90. Everett watched her thumb move over the coins in her palm, sorting. Silver from copper. The exact motion his mother made at the kitchen table. He had to look away. He looked at the greeting cards instead. Get well soon. Happy birthday. And his hand was shaking. This man who signed billion-dollar deals with a steady grip. And he didn't understand why until he realized. He was in the dream. He was living the dream. Standing behind a mother counting coins. Except this time, he told himself. This time it was different. This time his pockets were full. Beep, beep, beep. Okay, Destiny said. That's $7 even. $7. That's what dinner cost. $7. And Everett had a watch on his wrist worth more than this entire store's monthly rent. Maya opened her hand, and Everett, pretending to read a card about a grandmother's retirement, watched from the corner of his eye as she laid the coins out on the counter, one at a time. Clink, a quarter, clink, another, clink. Dimes now, then nickels. Then at the bottom, the pennies, the last resort. The coins you only bring out when the good coins are gone. Destiny counted them with a plastic fingernail, sliding them into little piles. $6.25, the girl said. Maya's hand went still. $6.25. She needed 7. She was 75 cents short. Now, here's the moment. Here's the tiny movement Everett didn't blink for. Because a woman who's 75 cents short at a register, you'd expect a certain thing. You'd expect her to flinch, to flush, to start pulling items back. Okay, take off the applesauce, take off the banana. The small public humiliation of subtraction. Maya didn't do that. Instead, and Everett saw it perfectly, her hand moved to her purse. An old purse, cracked leather at the corners, one strap held together with a safety pin. She opened it just a few inches, just enough, and she reached inside, and her fingers found something. Everett couldn't see what, something wrapped in a napkin or a piece of cloth, small. She'd been careful with it. She held it inside that purse for a second, half pulled out, hesitating. And then her eyes flicked to the register total, and to her daughter, and back into the purse. And she pushed it back down, whatever it was. She hid it deeper, covered it, zipped the pocket, and instead she said the words, Can you take off the peanut butter? Her voice was steady, too steady. The steadiness of someone who has practiced not breaking. The peanut butter and the banana, sorry. Everett Cole stood frozen in the greeting card aisle, because he didn't understand what he'd just seen. She had something in that purse, something she almost used, something that, from the way she'd handled it, from the way her fingers curled around it, was worth more than 75 cents. Maybe a lot more. And she chose the peanut butter. She chose to send her kids home without protein rather than spend whatever that was. Why? What could possibly be more important than feeding your children tonight? What do you protect that fiercely? Protect from your own hungry kids, that you'd let the peanut butter go instead? Everett didn't know, but he was going to find out. And the answer, the thing wrapped in that napkin, was going to break his heart in a way that even his mother's death never had. Because it wasn't money. It wasn't jewelry. It wasn't drugs or a secret or anything ugly. It was something so pure and so devastating that when Everett finally understood, weeks later, he would sit in his empty penthouse and weep like a child. But we're not there yet. Right now, the cashier was reaching for the peanut butter to void it, and the little girl, the still, quiet, too grown-up little girl, looked up at her mother, and she said, so softly Everett almost missed it, "It's okay, Mama. I don't need the banana. Tyler can have it." Tyler, the baby, the little brother. "I don't need the banana. Tyler can have it." 6 years old, and she was already doing it. Already learning to give up her portion. Already smiling too tight over something breaking underneath. Already turning into her mother. Already turning into Ruth. And that was the moment Everett Cole stopped being a bystander. Something snapped clean inside him. 20 years of nightmares, of empty pockets, of arriving 3 months too late. All of it crashed down at once in a Dollar Tree checkout line on a Tuesday night. He set down the greeting card, he stepped out of the aisle, and he walked toward register 2, not knowing that the woman he was about to help would look at his $10,000 suit and tell him no. "I've got it." That's all Everett said, 3 words. He stepped up beside her, pulled a money clip from his pocket, and peeled off a bill without even looking at it. A 50. He set it on the counter next to her little piles of copper and silver. "Keep everything," he told the cashier. "The peanut butter, the banana, all of it." And here's what he expected. He expected relief. He expected that flood you see in people's faces when a stranger lifts a weight off them. The soft "oh" of gratitude. Maybe tears. He'd braced himself for tears because he knew he might cry too, and a man like Everett Cole does not cry in a Dollar Tree. That's not what happened. Maya turned and looked at him, and her face didn't melt into gratitude. It hardened. She looked at the suit first. That's the thing he noticed. Her eyes went straight to the charcoal wool, the watch, the shoes that cost more than her rent, and something in her expression closed like a door. "No," she said. "Thank you, but no." She said it quiet, but she said it like she meant it. And she reached out and slid the 50 back across the counter toward him. "Take your peanut butter off," she told the cashier, calm, firm. "Like I said." Everett blinked. Nobody told Everett Cole no, not for 20 years. People said yes before he finished his sentences. People said yes to things he hadn't even asked for. And here was a woman with $6.25 to her name, pushing away 50 like it was something rotten. "Ma'am," he said, Please, it's nothing. Let me." "It's not nothing." She turned to face him fully now. The baby shifted on her hip. The little girl pressed closer to her leg, watching this stranger with wide, wary eyes. "It's not nothing," Maya said again. "It's a whole lot, actually. It's a whole lot to me. And I'm telling you no. Here's the crazy part. For the first time in longer than he could remember, Everett Cole didn't know what to say. He'd walked in there thinking he understood the whole story. Poor woman, rich man. He hands her money, she's saved. He drives home feeling like maybe, he finally paid down some small piece of the debt he owed his mother's ghost. Clean, simple, transactional. But Maya had just torn that script in half. Because she wasn't looking at him like a savior. She was looking at him like a threat. "Let me ask you something," she said. The line behind them had gone dead silent. Everybody watching now, not even pretending. "Why'd you come over here?" Everett opened his mouth, closed it. "You've been standing back there by the cards for 5 minutes," she said, "watching me. You think I didn't notice? I notice everything. I have to notice everything." She wasn't wrong. He had been watching. He felt the heat climb his neck. "So I'll ask again," she said. "Why? What is it you want?" And that stopped him cold. Because what did he want? He wanted to fix it. He wanted to reach through 20 years of nightmares and put groceries in a cart that would never be empty again. He wanted to save this woman because he couldn't save the one who mattered. But he couldn't say any of that. It sounded insane. It was insane. She didn't know him. To her, he was just a rich stranger who'd been staring at her for 5 minutes and was now waving cash around in front of her kids. "I don't want anything," he said finally. I saw, and I wanted to help." "Uh-huh." She almost smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "That's what they always say." They. Everett caught that word and turned it over. They. Like there'd been others. Like men in nice clothes offering money to a struggling woman was a thing she'd learned to be afraid of. And just like that, he understood something ugly. He understood what she thought this was. "It's not that," he said quickly. I don't want anything from you. I swear to God, I have a..." He stopped. He couldn't say, "I have a company, I have billions, I have more money than this town will see in a lifetime." It would sound like a lie, or worse, like bait. "I just want to pay for your groceries," he said. "That's the whole thing, that's it. Then I walk out and you never see me again." Maya studied him. The baby fussed. She bounced him without looking, an automatic motion, 1,000 times practiced. And for a second, just a second, Everett saw the exhaustion underneath the armor, the real thing, the bone-deep tired of a woman who'd been holding a line so long she'd forgotten what it felt like to set the weight down. She wanted to say yes, he could see it. Part of her, the tired part, screamed, "Yes, take it, take the 50, take 100. Your kids need to eat." But she didn't. "Take off the peanut butter," she told the cashier one more time. "And the banana, please." And here's the part that gutted him. The little girl tugged her mother's sleeve. "Mama," she whispered, "the man's being nice. Why can't we?" "Because we don't take things from strangers, baby." Maya knelt down, right there in line. Baby on her hip and all, she got down to her daughter's eye level, and she said it soft, but Everett heard every word. "We don't take things we can't pay back. That's not how we do it. We're not..." Her voice caught, just slightly. "We're not charity, okay? We take care of ourselves, you and me and Tyler. We take care of us, understand?" The little girl nodded. She didn't understand, but she nodded, because that's what you do. And Everett stood there and felt the whole thing invert, because his mother used to say the exact same words. "We take care of ourselves, baby. We don't take charity." Ruth had said it right up until the end. She'd said no to him 100 times. No to the house, no to the car, no to the money her own son was begging her to accept. "You save it, baby. we're doing fine." He'd spent 20 years thinking his mother's pride was the tragedy. And now here it was again, kneeling on a dirty tile floor, teaching a 6-year-old to say no to the very help that could save her. Maya stood back up. She counted out $6.25 in coins. Bread, milk, pasta, sauce, applesauce. No peanut butter, no banana. Destiny bagged it in a thin plastic bag that strained at the handles. "Have a good night," the cashier mumbled, not meaning it, just saying it. And Maya took the bag and shifted the baby and took her daughter's hand and turned to go. She got 3 steps, then she stopped. She turned back around and looked at Everett, really looked at him one more time, and something in her face had softened just a hair. Not much, but a hair. "I appreciate it," she said. "The trying, I do. Most people just look away." And then she said the thing that would keep Everett Cole awake for the next 3 nights. "But you don't know what you're offering," she said. "You think it's about the 75 cents. It's not about the 75 cents. And she walked out. The electronic chirp of the door, the baby's small cry, the strained plastic bag swinging. Gone. Everett Cole stood alone at Register 2, holding a $50 bill that a woman with nothing had refused to take. It's not about the 75 cents. Then what was it about? What was in the purse? Why did a mother let her kids go hungry to protect it? And why did every word out of that woman's mouth sound like it was coming from his dead mother's lips? He looked down at the counter, at the little abandoned pile, the peanut butter and the single banana, voided, set aside, unwanted now, and he made a decision that a smarter man would not have made. He was going to find her. Not to give her money. She'd made it clear money wasn't the answer. He was going to find out what was. Finding people is easy when you own a logistics empire. That's the ugly truth of it. Everett Cole moved 40 million packages a day. He knew where things went. He knew how to know. And a woman who'd used a debit card, even for $6.25 in coins, she'd tapped a worn-out card for the tax, leaves a thread. He didn't pull that thread himself. He wasn't proud of it, but he made a call. By noon the next day, he had a name. Maya Brooks, 34 years old. And that's where the easy part ended. Because the file that came back didn't make sense. Everett sat in his office, floor 40 of a glass tower downtown, the whole city spread out beneath him like a circuit board, and he read it twice. Then a third time. Maya Brooks, 2 children. Amara, age 6, Tyler, age 2. Widowed. There it was, widowed. Her husband, a man named Daniel Brooks, had died 14 months ago. And here's where Everett's stomach turned. Daniel Brooks hadn't been nobody. Daniel Brooks had been a paramedic, a first responder. The file had a news clipping attached, and Everett read the headline and set the paper down and had to stand up and walk to the window. Local paramedic killed in highway collision while responding to call. He'd died saving someone else. A pileup on the interstate in the rain. He'd been kneeling over a stranger, doing CPR on the shoulder of a highway, when a second car lost control. He never saw it coming. He left behind a wife and 2 kids and a mortgage and a stack of bills that a paramedic's salary had barely been covering to begin with. Everett stared out at his city. It's not about the 75 cents. No, it wasn't. But here's the part that didn't add up. The part that kept Everett at his desk long after his assistant went home, long after the cleaning crew came and went. The math didn't work. A first responder killed in the line of duty, there should have been a death benefit, life insurance, a pension, something. The city had programs, the union had funds. A man who died doing CPR on a highway does not leave his family counting coins in a Dollar Tree. That's not how it's supposed to work. So Everett dug. And this is where the invisible villain of our story steps out of the shadows. Because the reason Maya Brooks was broke wasn't bad luck. It wasn't a spending problem. It wasn't anything you could pin on her. It was paperwork. Here's what Everett found, buried in public records and a few phone calls he had no right to make. Daniel Brooks's death benefit, the big one, the one that would have paid off the house and set his kids up for school. It existed. It was real. It was sitting in an account somewhere with Maya's name on it. But it was frozen. Frozen behind a wall of forms. See, Daniel had died at the scene, and the scene was chaos. Rain, sirens, a highway shut down. And in the chaos, the official time of death got recorded by one agency at 9:47 p.m. and by another agency at 10:02 p.m. 15 minutes. 15 minutes of discrepancy on two different pieces of government paper, and because those two numbers didn't match, the insurance carrier flagged the claim. Pending verification. And to unflag it, Maya needed to produce a corrected death certificate. And to get a corrected death certificate, she needed a sign-off from the medical examiner's office. And the medical examiner's office needed a form from the responding agency. And the responding agency had reorganized and merged with the county, and the person who'd filed the original report had retired. Do you see it? Do you see the trap? A widow with 2 kids and a full-time job at a laundromat was being asked to chase a single corrected timestamp through 4 different bureaucracies, each one pointing to the other, each one closed by 5, each one with a phone tree that dumped you into a voicemail nobody checked. 15 minutes. Her children were going hungry over a 15-minute clerical error that no human being would ever fix, because it wasn't any one human being's job to fix it. Everett sat back in his chair, and he felt the old fury rise, the cold kind, the kind that built his empire, because this he understood. This was a systems problem. This was inefficiency. This was a broken supply chain, and Everett Cole had spent his entire adult life beating broken supply chains into submission. He could fix this in an afternoon. He knew he could. One phone call to the right lawyer, one letter on the right stationery, and that frozen benefit would thaw like ice in July. But here's what stopped him. We don't take things we can't pay back. She'd refused a $50 bill. Kneeling on the floor, she'd taught her daughter to refuse charity. If Everett Cole swept in and unfroze her dead husband's benefit, she wouldn't see a helping hand. She'd see a rich man taking over her life, deciding for her. The exact thing she'd built all that armor to keep out. She would say no. She would say no even to this, and she might never let him near her or her kids again. So Everett did something he'd never done in his life. He didn't fix it with money, not yet. He got in his car, no driver again, just him, and he drove to the laundromat where Maya Brooks worked the evening shift. And he did not walk in as a trillionaire. He walked in as a man who needed his shirts done. The laundromat was small and hot and loud with a tumble of 40 dryers. And there she was, behind the counter, hair pulled back, sleeves rolled up, folding other people's clothes into neat, warm stacks. She saw him. She recognized him instantly, the suit, even a cheaper one he'd changed into on purpose, couldn't hide the way he carried himself. Her face did that thing again, that door, closing. "You," she said. "Me," Everett said. He set a bag of dress shirts on the counter, real shirts. He'd actually brought laundry because he'd known she'd throw him out if he came empty-handed with more charity. "I need these pressed," he said. "That's all. I'm a customer." She looked at the bag. She looked at him. She wasn't buying it, not even a little. "You followed me," she said flatly. "I did," he admitted, because lying to her felt worse than the truth. "I looked you up. I know about Daniel." The name landed like a slap. Her hands went still on the shirt she was folding. "I know he was a paramedic," Everett said, gentle now, quiet under the roar of the dryers. I know how he died, and I know about the benefit, the one that's frozen. Maya's jaw tightened. I know it's not your fault, he said. I know it's a mistake on a form, 2 timestamps that don't match, and I know you've been calling those offices for over a year and getting nowhere. She stared at him, and for the first time the armor cracked, not into gratitude, but into something rawer, fear. And under the fear, exhaustion so deep it had no bottom. How do you know all that? She whispered. Because finding out things is what I do, Everett said. It's the only thing I've ever been good at. And then he said the sentence that changed everything. I'm not here to give you money, Maya. You already told me you won't take it, so I'm not offering it. She waited. I'm here to give you something else, he said. And it's the one thing they can't say no to. And what's that? Maya asked. This one thing they can't say no to. Everett leaned on the counter. Around them, dryers tumbled. A timer buzzed somewhere. A man in the back pulled warm towels from a machine and didn't look up. A witness, Everett said. Maya frowned. A what? You've been fighting those offices alone, he said. One woman, on the phone, on hold, during your lunch break. And they know it. That's how the whole thing survives. It runs on people giving up, on people being too tired, too busy, too alone to keep pushing. He tapped the counter. They can ignore one tired widow. They do it every day. It's easy. It's designed to be easy. Maya said nothing, but she was listening now, really listening. They cannot ignore a witness, Everett said. Someone standing right there. Someone who doesn't leave. Someone who knows exactly which form goes to which office and who follows it, hand to hand, until it's signed. Someone who has all day, every day, who has nothing better to do than sit in that waiting room until the 15 minutes get fixed. He let that sit. I'm offering to be that person, he said. Not your savior, not your charity, your witness. I go where you go. I sit where you sit. And I don't say a word about who I am or what I have. I just don't let them look away. Maya was quiet for a long time. The dryers tumbled. The timer buzzed again. Why? She finally said. Why would you do that? A man like you. You've got, I don't even know what you've got, companies. I looked you up too, after. Everett almost smiled. Of course she had. You want the real answer? He said, or the polite one? The real one. I'm too tired for polite. So he told her. He told her about Ruth, about the cocoa tin, about the coins on the kitchen table, and the milk that won and the bread that lost, about the heat clicking off at 10 and calling it an adventure, about the house he'd planned to buy and the 3 months he missed it by, about the nightmare, the empty pockets, the woman he couldn't reach, 20 years of it, same dream every time. He told her he'd walked into that Dollar Tree because he saw a mother counting coins, and it wasn't a dream anymore. It was right there. And for 1 second he thought maybe he could finally do the thing he never got to do. And then you said no, he said. And you sounded exactly like her, word for word. We don't take charity. My mother died saying that. She died broke and proud, and I never forgave the world for letting her. He stopped. His voice had gone rough. He hadn't meant it to. So this isn't about you, if that makes it easier, he said. Not really. It's about me. It's the thing I couldn't do for her. Let me do it for you instead. Let me just not be too late, one time. That's all I'm asking. And something shifted in Maya Brooks. You could see it. The door didn't swing open, but it unlatched. Because she understood now. This wasn't a man looking down at her from a tower. This was a man who'd been that little girl at the register, the quiet one, the one who learned to give up her banana. Everett Cole had been Amara. Once, a long time ago. He wasn't offering her charity. He was offering her something two broken people could actually hold between them. "Okay," she said, barely a whisper. "Okay. A witness, not money. You don't pay for anything, you just come with me. Sit with me." "I just come with you," Everett agreed. "I don't spend a dime. You have my word." "Your word," she repeated, half a laugh. "The word of a man who followed me home from a dollar store." "I know how it sounds." "It sounds insane." "It is insane," Everett admitted. "But so is a 15-minute clerical error starving two kids. So maybe insane is what it takes." Maya looked at him, and she stuck out her hand, chapped from detergent, a wedding ring she still wore 14 months later, and they shook on it, over a counter of other people's folded shirts, the strangest partnership either of them had ever made. Here's the crazy part. It worked. Not fast. Nothing about a bureaucracy is fast, but it worked. The next morning, Everett Cole, the ice baron, the man who moved 40 million packages a day, sat in a molded plastic chair in the county records office next to Maya Brooks. And he waited. 2 hours, then 3. And when the clerk called Maya to the window and started to say the words she'd said 100 times, "You'll need to get that from the other office, ma'am," Everett stood up. He didn't threaten anyone. He didn't drop his name. He just said, calm and steady, "We understand. Can you tell us exactly which office, exactly which form, and exactly who signs it? And can we get that in writing before we leave, so we don't come back to the wrong window a 4th time?" In writing. 2 words. But it changed the whole game. Because a clerk can wave you off with a vague answer. A clerk cannot as easily put a wrong answer in writing with their name on it. Suddenly the buck couldn't be passed. Suddenly someone was accountable. And when that office pointed to the next one, Everett and Maya drove there. And they sat. And they asked the same question, in writing. And they didn't leave. Day after day, the witness who wouldn't look away. And this is where we come back to the purse. Because on the 4th day, sitting in yet another waiting room, another plastic chair, another number on a paper ticket, the baby, Tyler, started to cry. Maya had brought both kids. She had no choice. Her shift didn't leave room for a sitter, and Everett had insisted she not lose a single dollar of pay chasing this thing. So there was Tyler, fussing, red-faced, that building wail that means a nap is coming whether the world's ready or not. And Maya reached into her purse, the old one, cracked leather, safety pin strap. And Everett, sitting right beside her this time, close, not spying from a greeting card aisle, Everett saw it. The thing, wrapped in a napkin. She unwrapped it with the automatic care of a thing handled 1,000 times. And it wasn't money. It wasn't jewelry. It was a pacifier. A small, blue, ordinary baby's pacifier. Worn. The kind you buy in a 2-pack at a dollar store. She slipped it gently into Tyler's mouth, and the crying stopped, and the baby's eyes went heavy, and he settled against her chest. Everett stared. That was the thing she protected. That was what she'd hidden deeper into her purse rather than spend 75 cents. That was what she'd let the peanut butter go for. A pacifier. He didn't understand. Not yet. It was just a pacifier. You can buy a pacifier for $1. Why would a woman guard a dollar pacifier like it was the last thing on earth? And then Maya saw him looking, and her whole face changed. "It was the last thing Daniel touched," she said. Quiet. Barely there under the fluorescent hum. That morning, the morning he died. Tyler dropped it in the kitchen and Daniel picked it up off the floor and wiped it on his shirt and gave it back and made that face he always made. That dumb, crossed eyes face. And Tyler laughed. Her voice broke on laughed. That was the last time. The last morning. Daniel picked it up, wiped it on his shirt, gave it back, and then he went to work, and he didn't come home. She looked down at her sleeping son. Tyler's too old for it now. He doesn't even really need it anymore. But I won't buy a new one. I can't. Because the day I throw this one away is the day the last thing Daniel ever touched is just gone, in a landfill somewhere, like it was nothing. She wrapped the memory of her husband around a plastic pacifier and held it in her hand. "So no," she said. "I wasn't going to spend it, not that, not ever. That's what you saw, that's what I was hiding. It's not worth anything to anybody but me. But to me, it's the whole world." And Everett Cole, the man money couldn't move, sat in a plastic chair in a county waiting room and felt his throat close completely. Here's what Everett didn't tell Maya. That night, after he watched her wrap that pacifier back in its napkin and tuck it deep in her purse, he went home to his penthouse, 40 floors up, all glass, a view of the whole glittering city, and he couldn't sleep. Because the pacifier had broken something open in him. For 20 years, Everett had believed his grief was the biggest grief, the heaviest. He'd lost his mother 3 months before he could save her. He'd carried that like a stone nobody else could possibly understand. And then a woman in a plastic chair showed him a $1 pacifier, and he realized his grief wasn't special. It was just grief, the same grief everybody carries. The whole world is full of people holding on to the last thing someone touched, the last voicemail they can't delete, the shirt that still smells like them, the chair nobody sits in anymore. Everett had a whole empire and a mother-shaped hole. Maya had 2 kids, $6, and a husband-shaped hole. Same hole, different size wallet. And that's when Everett Cole made a decision that would have made his board of directors lose their minds. He was going to fix it all. Not just the frozen benefit, all of it. The whole broken machine that let a paramedic's widow fall through the cracks over a 15-minute timestamp. Because here's the thing he couldn't stop thinking about. If it happened to Maya, it happened to others. How many other families of dead first responders were out there right now, counting coins, blocked by a form, too tired and too alone to fight 4 bureaucracies at once? How many other widows were choosing between peanut butter and dignity because 2 government computers wrote down 2 different numbers? The system wasn't broken by accident. It was broken by design, built to exhaust people into giving up. And Everett Cole had spent his entire life redesigning broken systems. But first, the immediate fight, Maya's fight. Because you can't fix the whole ocean while one woman is drowning right in front of you. They hit the wall on day 9, the corrected timestamp. The whole thing hinged on one signature from the medical examiner's office. A single official acknowledging that yes, the time of death was 9:47, not 10:02, and the discrepancy was a recording error at the scene. One signature, that's all. And the medical examiner's office said no. Not no like a slammed door, worse. No like a shrug. We can't amend a record without a formal request from the originating agency, the woman behind the glass said, not unkindly, just tiredly. And the originating agency was dissolved in the county merger, so there's no one to file the request. I'm sorry, there's really nothing I can do. There's no one to file the request. The originating agency didn't exist anymore. The one office that could unlock everything had been erased in a reorganization. The form needed a signature from a department that had ceased to exist. It was a perfect trap, a closed loop with no door. And Everett watched Maya's face fall, watched 14 months of hope drain out of her in real time, right there at the glass. And he understood that this was the moment. This was the moment the system won. This was the moment where every other widow gave up. Where you go home and you tell your kids it's fine and you count your coins and you never come back. Because there is literally no next step. The path just ends. In a wall. Maya turned to leave. "Come on," she said quietly. "It's okay. I knew it was a long shot. Let's go get the kids." She'd already accepted it. She was already folding it back up, tucking the defeat away like the pacifier, deep where it wouldn't cut anybody. And Everett Cole stood at that glass and did not move. If this story is hitting you the way it's hitting me, if you know someone who's been ground down by a system that was never built to help them, take 1 second right now and subscribe. That's it. Then stay with me. Because what Everett did next is the reason I'm telling you this story at all. "No," Everett said. Maya stopped. He wasn't talking to her. He was talking to the woman behind the glass. "You said you can't amend it without a request from the originating agency," he said. Calm. That cold, empire-building calm. But the originating agency was absorbed into the county. It didn't vanish. Its authority transferred. Legally, its records and its powers now belong to whoever inherited its function in the merger. The woman blinked. That's not really something I... "Who inherited it?" Everett asked. "There's always a successor. In every merger, someone signs the paper that says we now hold the assets and obligations of the dissolved entity. That document exists. It has to. So somewhere in this county there is a department that legally is the originating agency now. And that department can file the request." Silence behind the glass. "I'd like to speak to whoever handles the merger transition records," Everett said. "In writing, please. Their name and their office, before we leave." In writing. Those 2 words again. And the woman behind the glass, who had spent her whole career being the wall people gave up against, looked at this man in his plain shirt, who spoke like he owned the building, and she picked up her phone. It took 3 more days. 3 days of Everett Cole doing what Everett Cole does best, following the thread through the machine, hand to hand, refusing every dead end, treating a county bureaucracy exactly like a broken supply chain, because that's all it was. And on the 12th day, in a fluorescent office that smelled like old coffee, a deputy county administrator, a man who'd inherited the dissolved agency's authority and never once thought about what that meant, signed a single piece of paper, a formal request to amend the record. Time of death, 9:47 p.m. 1 signature. The wall came down. Maya didn't cry when it happened. That's the thing Everett would remember. She didn't cry in the office. She was too shocked. She just stared at the signed form like it might disappear, like it was a mirage. Like 14 months of no couldn't possibly end with one man's pen scratching across a line. She cried in the car. They sat in the parking lot and she put her hands over her face and she cried the way you cry when you've been holding your breath for over a year. Big, ugly, gasping sobs. The kids were with a neighbor. It was just the 2 of them, in Everett's car, in a county parking lot. "It's done," Everett said quietly. "The certificate gets corrected. The claim gets unfrozen. The benefit, Maya, it's a lot. It's enough. The house is paid off, the kids' schooling, all of it. You never count coins again." "Why?" she said through her hands. "Why did you don't even know us. 12 days. You spent 12 days sitting in waiting rooms with a laundromat worker and 2 kids. You, a man who..." "Because somebody should have done it for my mother," Everett said. "And nobody did. So I did it for you. That's the whole thing. That's the only reason." Maya lowered her hands, and she looked at him, really looked, and she said, "You didn't just do it for me." Everett went still. "You did it for you," she said gently. "For that little boy in the doorway. You finally got to reach her, through me. You finally got to reach your mother." And that was the true climax. Not the signature, not the money. That sentence. because Everett Cole had spent 20 years believing he'd arrive 3 months too late, that the door to his mother was closed forever, that no amount of money could ever buy back the thing he missed. And a widow he met in a Dollar Tree had just shown him another door. The dream, the nightmare, the empty pockets, the woman he couldn't reach. His pockets weren't empty anymore, and this time, he'd reached her. The money came through 6 weeks later, and here's what Maya Brooks did with the first check, the big one, the death benefit that had been frozen behind a 15-minute error for over a year. She didn't buy a new car. She didn't move. She sat at her kitchen table, the same table where she'd counted coins 100 times, and she paid off the mortgage on the little house Daniel had bought when Amara was born. The house he was so proud of. The house he'd painted himself one weekend, blue trim because Maya said she liked blue. She paid it off in full, and then she called Everett. "It's done," she said. "The house is ours, free and clear. Nobody can ever take it. Not the bank, not a form, not anybody." "Good," Everett said, and he meant it more than he'd meant anything in years. "There's something else," Maya said. "I want you to come by. Saturday, dinner. The kids want to meet the man who kept coming to the boring offices. Amara's been calling you the shirt man." Everett laughed, an actual laugh. He couldn't remember the last time. "The shirt man," he said. "I'll take it." Here's the crazy part. Everett Cole, a man who dined with senators and sat on the boards of things most people can't spell, had not been to a family dinner in 20 years. He'd forgotten what it was like. The noise, the chaos. Tyler flinging pasta, Amara narrating everything at a volume that had no indoor setting. A house that was small and warm and smelled like garlic bread and had crayon drawings taped to the refrigerator at a toddler's eye level. He sat at that table, Daniel's table, and he ate spaghetti off a plate with a chip in the rim, and something in his chest that had been clenched for 2 decades slowly, quietly, let go. This was the thing money never bought him. Not the house, not the car he'd planned for Ruth. This. A table full of noise and someone passing you the bread without being asked. He'd built an empire trying to buy back a kitchen table, and a widow he met in a Dollar Tree had just set a plate down in front of him. After dinner, when the kids were in bed, Maya and Everett sat on the back porch, Daniel's blue-trimmed porch. The night was warm. "Can I ask you something?" Everett said. "You followed me home from a store. I think we're past permission." He smiled. "The pacifier, Tyler's pacifier, the one you kept." Maya's face went soft and still. "I've been thinking about it," Everett said, "for weeks. I can't stop thinking about it, honestly. That you'd let the peanut butter go, let your kids go without, before you'd risk spending $1 that had nothing to do with that pacifier. Just because it was the last thing he touched." "I know how it sounds," Maya said. "It doesn't sound like anything," Everett said. "It sounds like love. It sounds like the most human thing I've ever seen." He looked out at the dark yard. "My mother had a cocoa tin," he said, "full of coins. After she died, I couldn't spend them. I still have them, 20 years later. A grown man with more money than a small country. And I've got a tin of pennies I will never, ever spend, because her hands touched them." He shook his head. "I never told anyone that, not one person. I thought it was crazy." "It's not crazy," Maya said. "No," Everett said. "I know that now. You taught me that." He turned to her. "We're the same, you and me. We hold on to the last thing they touched. Because as long as we hold it, some little piece of them isn't gone." Maya reached over, and she squeezed his hand. Chapped from detergent, wedding ring still on. 2 people holding on to their dead, together, on a porch under a warm sky. "So what happens now, shirt man?" she said. Everett was quiet a moment. "Now," he said, I'm going to make sure nobody ever gets trapped the way you did, ever again.